when it comes to human beings, in the Quran, Allah tells us, and I'm going to talk about the actual verses after this, but I think it's good to follow this part, to start with this part, so that when we get into the actual stages and what Allah has said in terms of hijab, we see the wisdom behind it already before we even know what we're supposed to do. So, subhanAllah, in the Quran, Allah tells the woman to cover, and He tells us to cover for two reasons. Now, when it comes to rhetoric, when it comes to persuasion, when it comes to explaining things to people, usually you start with the most important and then you move from the most important to the least important. Not that they're not all important, but you start with the strongest. So in the Quran, Allah says to the woman to take her jilbab over her when she goes out, and to do it when and why? So that you will be known, so that you will be recognized. Recognized as what? Recognized as a Muslim. So when somebody sees you, there is no doubt in their mind, this is a Muslim woman, as opposed to a practicing Christian, a practicing Jew, a practicing Hindu, a practicing whatever. You will see the person because what they're wearing is a uniform. It's something that all of them are wearing the same basic thing. It may not be the same color. It may not be the same exact design, but the parameters are the same. So Allah gave us 3 different parameters that we have to follow. And throughout the hadith, we know that it turns out to be 7 parameters that make it hijab. Hijab is not just a piece of cloth on your head. So subhanAllah, this is one thing that becomes a protection. And that's before I get even into this. That first thing is both visible and psychological. I have been on both sides of it. I was a non-Muslim and then I became a Muslim. I was not wearing hijab and then I started wearing hijab. So when I put on the hijab, I changed my perspective, and I recognize that this identifies me as I'm walking down the street, as I'm dealing with people, when they look at me psychologically already, they're looking at me and saying, this is a Muslim. What she's wearing identifies her as a Muslim. And as a Muslim, I know some things about Muslim. They may not be, if it's a non-Muslim, they may not know everything, but they know that a person wearing a hijab has different boundaries than a person wearing a bikini, has different boundaries than a person who is wearing a shirt and pants. Your clothing identifies you, gives information about your personality,